And welcome back to Flashpoint. We've made our way over to Cobo for our annual walk through the auto show with none other than, of course, John McElroy of Autoline. John, there's no getting around it. It's a stripped down, smaller show, right?
It really is. Look, I think 10 different brands have pulled out of the show. 10 is a lot.
Yeah.
And it shows. There's a lot of open floor space here. But for what there is here, there's some really good stuff to look at.
Well, that's good. And let's start with maybe a little bit of horsepower, huh?
Muscle.
I like it. Well, John, we've had to fight through a little bit of a crowd to get to this one, and for good reason. It's kind of a showstopper, the Mustang Shelby.
Yeah, it really is a showstopper. We had to elbow our way through all the people around here, which is great.
We apologize.
Yeah, new Shelby GT500. Awesome car. I cannot wait to drive this. Over 700 horsepower. They won't say how much over. They're being a little bit coy about it.
Wouldn't you want it to everybody to know exactly how much horsepower?
Well, we'll get to that, I'm sure, or Ford will, but yeah. Hand-built engine. That's part of the theme, I think, of this year's show. A lot of trucks, a lot of performance.
But we also know that, in fact, I'm going to remember 2018, I think, is the year the American sedan died. Now, this isn't a sedan, but these kind of cars are getting harder to find.
They are from, you know, the Detroit 3. Yeah. They're not giving up on all their cars. They're just giving up on the ones they can't make any money on. But they can make money on this one, believe me.
It's beautiful, isn't it? All right, well, let's go take a look at a moneymaker. John, we know that SUVs and trucks have been where it's at for the American automakers. For Jeep, it's mostly been exclusively the SUV world. They're getting back into the truck business in a very splashy way with the Rubicon.
They really are. The Gladiator, which is what the truck is called, did not debut at this show. It actually came out in LA. But you can tell, all the people looking around, this is going to be one of the hits of the Detroit show as well. And you're right, Devin. Jeep is finally getting back into the pickup segment. It hasn't been here in years, and all the Jeep aficionados have been begging Jeep to do it. The pickup segment's really hot right now. I'll bet this thing sells terrifically, and it's going to keep Jeep's growth going and going and going.
You look up rugged in the dictionary, I think this is what you'd see. But it's interesting, to place all the bets on SUVs and trucks makes sense from a profit sense, but this has also been the world of $2 gas. What if that doesn't last?
Well, it probably will not last, but if you look at Jeep sales around the world, even in Europe, where it's $6 or $7 a gallon, they're doing very well. Why? People just love what this brand represents, and they want to exhibit that. So, yeah, higher gas prices would hurt it, but I'll bet it keeps going pretty well.
Pretty sweet. All right, let's get back to our need for speed, shall we? We've arrived at a car, John, that a lot of people were very eager to see, not the least of which was my partner, Kimberly Gill, who has kind of coveted this car for her whole life. And this is the new Toyota Supra, and this is one of those cars that looks like it's going 80 miles an hour when it's sitting still.
I think more like 160 miles an hour myself. Here's the story on this car. You know, Toyota dropped the Supra, I want to say something like 17 years ago. It's been out of the market a long time. The CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyoda, is a total car nut. I mean, absolute total car nut. He's even got a professional racing license and has raced in professional races. And he says, dang it, we're bringing the Supra back. And guess what? When your name's Toyota and you're the CEO, it happens. And here we've got it debuting at the Detroit show.
And I imagine you agree with everyone else that it is very successfully rendered.
It's an eye grabber, that's for sure. You know, the proof in the pudding is always in the driving. When it comes to cars, I'll withhold my judgment till then. I'll bet it's wicked fast. I'll bet it's really efficient as Toyota does things. And I'm not sure they're going to sell a whole lot of them, but it's going to bring a lot of people into the showroom just to look at it.
This is one of those cars that would make us both look more handsome if we were sitting in it, don't you think?
Wouldn't it then?
There's no doubt about it.
They should just give us two.
Let's go head over to an international plate that a lot of people maybe haven't seen here, but there's a really fascinating story going on behind it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Engineered in Michigan, built in Michigan, creating jobs in Michigan. In fact, almost 500 now, I guess, John. But the story here is a brand that maybe Michiganders aren't as familiar with, and this is Mahindra.
It's a great story about Michigan. Mahindra is an Indian company from India. and they decided to set up shop in Michigan. One of the things they had their team here do is design and engineer this little minivan. It's not going to be sold in the US, it's being built in India for the world market, but I find it intriguing that an Indian company says, hey, if we're going to do the best of that we can in the world, we've got to go to the Detroit area because they got the best designers and engineers there.
For those who are familiar with this brand, they know that maybe for their off-road vehicles, they've kind of made, I guess what you'd call them, Indian Jeeps for all these years. This one though, and as you can tell with the right-hand drive, this is not just, they're ready to move on to the road.
They really are. You know, Mahindra is a big company. They're one of the dominant companies in India. They're not well known outside of that Indian market. Yeah. But you're right, they have this little sort of baby Jeep. It's not street legal, it's only for off-road, like going to ORV parks, or maybe if you got some big property, it'd be for that.
Yeah, well, John, I think as always, you've shown, even in a year of change, and it will be 18 months or so before we have another auto show in Detroit, there is a lot to take in, as always.
It's a good show. I mean, it's a smaller show for sure, but there's a lot of good things to look at.
Excellent. Thanks as always, John, for your time and expertise, and thank you for being here as well. Meet the Press coming up next. Have a great week. We'll see you next time right back here for Flashpoint.